And coming up on this episode of the MartyMariner Show, well, I think that every single person that has come on one of these episodes has been a legend within themselves. But these are bona fide legends. I can't get much bigger than the group that is about to jump inside the MartyMariner studio, because we are talking Matildas Alumni. Yes, Leigh Wardell, Renaye Iserief, Vicki Cerny, Janine McPhee, and also Trae McGovern are joining me for a bit of a chat, a bit of a chinwag, and a bit of a conversation. We're going to talk about how they found their way into the round ball game in those early days, their years through to becoming, which weren't even then called the Matildas, just a national team for Australia. We'll talk about the current day Matildas, the World Cup, and of course, we will end up slightly where we should do with the Central Coast Mariners and the part that they play within the club as well. An absolute ball having a chat to them, and I'm sure you will have a ball listening to them as well. Don't forget, if you are watching us now, thank you very much for being here. You can subscribe to the channel. There'll be a little subscribe button floating around there somewhere. If not, head over to YouTube, type in the MartyMariner Show. You will see us there. It is free to do so. And it's great. It helps spread the word of Australian football around the country, if not the world, nay, the universe. That will be greatly appreciated as well. And if you just like to listen, well, we are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple Podcasts. I think we've pretty got most of them covered. So if we don't, make sure you let me know and I'll try and find that one as well. But thank you for the likes. Thank you for the follows, the downloads, all the different things that you do. I appreciate it all, and especially those who've been sharing the episodes around as well. I greatly appreciate it. You are more than welcome to do so. The more the merrier, I always say. Alrighty, we better not keep absolute legends waiting any longer. I think you'll really enjoy this one. It'll be over a couple of episodes. Too much to pack into one program, that is for sure. Sit back and relax and enjoy. It's the MartyMariner Show. And welcome back to the MartyMariner Show. And well, we've had to roll out the red carpet, had to get out the duster and dust off all the furniture because have we got some very important people in the house. There's 224 Matildas at last count that I checked, and we've got 5 of them in the MartyMariner Show room tonight. How good is that? We've got to go around one by one to introduce them all. First of all, Leigh Wardell, Matilda number 11. Welcome to the MartyMariner Show. How are you doing?
I'm really good, Marty.
And dressed for the occasion, which I like to. So bonus points for you.
Excellent.
Let me know your earliest footballing memory. What's the first first memory of the game that you can recall?
Would be going to the football with my dad. I would have been a toddler, and I would have been going to watch games with him, and I would have gone to his games where he was coaching, so it would be watching the game, watching his team.
Yeah, because he was at Sydney, Prague, I think, from memory.
He was at Prague, yeah.
Yeah, and was it just the atmosphere of the place? Do you remember just being amongst all the people? Because those crowds can get a little bit feisty in those days, wouldn't they?
They could, but I actually don't remember where I sat. I can remember walking around holding his hand, and I can remember walking into change rooms and everywhere else. So yeah. I probably wasn't too far away from him. So I don't know whether I was on the bench or not, but I couldn't have been too far away.
Well, wherever you were, mate, you caught the bug, and we're forever thankful for that. Our next guest, look, I'm going to call it the Central Coast very own, the first ever to pull on the green and gold. How fantastic is that? Renaye Iserief, number 26 on the Matilda list. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing really well. Thanks, Marty. And yourself?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Still kicking, as they say, mate. What was your first memory of the game of football?
Well, as a youngster, probably about 5 or 6 years old, lived opposite the soccer fields at Budgewoi, where I first pulled on the jersey, and my brothers played. So I went over and had a kick around and trained with them. And there's no girls' teams back then. Wanted to play, got told, no, can't play, girls can't play soccer. So that was it. I basically just kicked around with them for the next half a dozen years. And, yeah, that's my earliest memory. And then as a 12-year-old, the women's comp started and toddled off across the road, thought I'd get a gig, thought I could probably hold my own in the squad there, but the coach told me to quietly just said, no, mate, you're too little, go away, stand in some horse manure and hang off a monkey bar, and come back next year and we'll have a look. So I did that, knocked back on the door again the next year, toddled across the park, and I said, Mr. Sneed, can I have a kick? And he went, oh, you again? You don't look like you've gotten too tall. I said, well, just let me have a kick with the ladies and we'll see where we go. So put on the old boots. I probably didn't pull them on. I probably had them on all day anyway, ready to go to training. And pretty much the rest is history. Had a kick around and he said, where do you live? I said, across the road. Where's your mum and dad? I said, they're at home. He said, let's go and have a chat. And that was it. I signed up as a 13-year-old to play all-age women's division on the Central Coast. As, again, no women's teams and, when there was no girls' teams when I started. So yeah, that's my start of my journey. And that was kicking the ball around with the big girls.
Absolutely. And the rest is history, and I'm sure we'll cover off on that in a minute too. Vicki, number 27. Does it bug you just behind Renaye? Wouldn't you love to be 25? Tell me about your earliest memory.
No, I love 20. 27 is my favourite number.
Oh, really?
We've got a thing in our family, 27 and 72. Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
Well, that works well. But what was your earliest memory of the game?
Being dragged off, I think we're all a bit the same. Dragged off with watching my brother play. He played for Forest under fives, and I was probably 6 then, and wished I could play and, just really just kick, you could kick a ball around, but that was it. And then probably not till I was about 12, 13, they started a practice game between us and Killarney and Allambie. And I remember my sister actually scored the first goal. So from about 35 yards out, and we used to play half each, half in goals, half on the field. And then the following year they started up the comp. We played in the Kringai comp for the first year with Killarney. And then the second year after that, we then Leonie Parker started up the Manly Warringah ladies competition. So I think we're all the same. We didn't have much to do with the men's or anything like that. Weren't allowed to have the same refs or the same fields or anything. So it was just, everyone dug deep and it was all age comp. So yeah, but I loved it. Couldn't get enough of it.
We are more than thankful for that. Janine, number 45. What's your story of the round ball game?
Hey, thanks, Marty. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. My story probably resonates as well as the others on the screen is through family. My parents immigrated from Scotland in the late 50s. They met at the Box Hill Soccer Club here in Melbourne. And I pretty much feel that I was born at that soccer club because I was there every night and weekends. Probably at the age of 5, kicking the ball around at halftime of the senior games. Following my dad coach my brother's teams. I used to go to training sessions, and I was this annoying little girl that used to butt in, and I probably kicked more of the boys than the ball probably at that age.
Fair enough. Girls
will tell you nothing's changed there on the screen, but so growing up in a family that's really really football fanatics. Started playing at the age of 13 because until then, as the others have said, you couldn't play in any boys' teams back then. So started playing at the age of 13 and then 14 was my first senior Victorian cap. and then, went on from there. But, yeah, really following my parents and my brothers into playing football at the Box Hill Soccer Club was my first initiation into the game.
Absolutely. And glad that they had you along. That's absolutely for sure. And Trae, as the youngster here, the junior member, I'm sure the others won't mind me saying, what about your memories of the early part of the game, having a kick around?
Yeah, I am the youngster within this group, but my story is pretty much the same. I was tagging along to soccer training to watch my brother, and same thing. Girls didn't play back then, so I was the first girl in the Wauchope Soccer Club to join up and play with the Wauchope Bullocks for many years. And my brother was 3 years older than me, but his coach would often ask me to fill in for their team when they had players missing. And I think I actually went on and played in a grand final once. I think I recall that. So I kind of was thinking, it was a lot of pressure for me, but I thought, well, I must be good enough to be doing this. So I'd just go on and do my best. And then the story continues a lot like the ladies. When I become a teenager, the boys would all go off and play reps, and I couldn't understand why I wasn't allowed to play reps. But at that same time, there was a women's comp that started up in Taree. So we got my dad was part of getting a Wauchope women's football team together, and we'd all jump on the bus, and Dad would drive the bus over to Taree every Friday night. And that's how the women's comp in Wauchope and Port Macquarie started.
Absolutely. And Trae, I'll stay with you because it seems so foreign now. I mean, I remember back even when I was a junior, there were no girls teams that were playing, but it seems so foreign now when we just think it's just there's girls games, it's boys games. When the word went around that they were starting to get the girls teams together, what was that like? Was it an excitement, can't wait, or was it, well, it's about bloody time?
Yeah, it was weird because there was Northern New South Wales had women's rep teams, and I could play schoolgirls. So I was in high school at this stage, and I was playing New South Wales schoolgirls. So I guess I couldn't really wrap my head around why there was the gap in the Saturday leagues. I guess when there was talk of a women's competition getting together, it was exciting, but at the same time, like I'd grown up playing with the same guys, and they really looked out for me, and they respected me as a player, as a female. And there were times where they won in all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I did cop a fair bit on the sideline from players' parents, like from the other teams, and grand finals they'd be go back to netball, and I'd be like, well, I've never played netball, and I couldn't understand why these parents were saying these types of things. And because as a young kid, you don't really, I don't know, I wasn't brought up that way, and my parents certainly didn't talk to other people's kids on the sideline like that. So I found it really hard to kind of comprehend. But anyway, when the women's comp started, I didn't have to deal with that anymore. I just had to deal with some tough women playing rough. But yeah, that's how it all happened.
Yeah, and it probably paid dividends in later years, probably the early games like that. Janine, do you remember, when the girls' teams came around, was there any sort of, kickback from people around there? It's like, what's this going on? Or was it about time? Because it seems to me that there was this whole heap of girls who wanted to play the game, had to play him or see their brothers play, watch their dads. All of a sudden now we've got girls' teams that are coming. Was there a bit of a kickback, like what's going on now? Or was there collectively this, thank God?
Yeah, no, I think collectively it was. I know my mum was was the first female on the Victorian Soccer Federation board. So I know she was pushing for a lot of years to have, females play, under the age of 12 and in boys' teams, and finally got that through many years later. So I think it was just really supported back then. I played my first, because we couldn't play in the boys teams, as I mentioned. So I played my first club was Baronia Soccer Club, and they couldn't wait to get a female or a women's team on board. So when they did that, they were extremely supportive. You know, we got new strips. We had a great training ground. They paid our registrations. They were very, very welcoming for females coming into their club, because they'd never had a female team before or a women's team before. So my experience very early on was very much supported by the club. Then we went across to Waverley Soccer Club the following year, and Waverley's quite a big club with a long history. So to get their first women's team as well, you know, they were really, you know, inclusive and supportive of the women's team coming on board.
Absolutely. And Vicki, was it for you, was there this general excitement about, yes, here we go, and there was a big collective push and, you know, girls were coming out wanting to play the game, or was it a bit of a slow burner at the start?
I think for us it was a bit of a slow burner. We actually started off with about when we first started, it was in the Ku-ring-gai comp, but when we came back to Manly and formed that club, the association, then I think there was about 10 teams, but that was all age. So, you know, you had very few young kids, and they wouldn't allow they wouldn't allow any kids under, I think it was like 12 or something like that, anyone that wasn't in a high school situation. So there were a lot of mums involved more than the people that I played with were a lot of mums or old girls. But yeah, there was a lot of excitement because, you know, we're just able to play football. You could, you know, although it was hard initially just getting referees and things like that, you know, trying to struggle to get kits and all that sort of type of thing. You know, clubs weren't that welcoming. You had to have your own clubs. You know, we had a ladies club that was attached to Killarney. So, yeah, it was pretty tough to start with. But I think, you know, people, because you wanted to really play the game, you fought tooth and nail. You know, referees, we had, you know, husbands and you know, boyfriends and brothers, they were the referees. We weren't allowed to have the referees from the association. And it wasn't until, you know, quite a while later we actually merged. So, yeah, it was pretty tough to start with. We had our own canteen. We were only allowed to use certain grounds. You had to get a ground. What we played on one ground, which that was David Thomas Reserve, and you know, we had to fight through the sporting commission to get that. We had our own caravan, which got wheeled from somebody's place and had set up, you know, where they just went and got their own pies and drinks and whatnot. So, yeah, it was tough to start with, but everyone loved it. You know, all the girls would get down, and it was just, yeah, it was great. It was, you know, really good fun.
Good community and stuff like that too. And
yeah.
Renaye, do you think the early days where these girls, you know, the girls were playing, the comps were established, it was tough. There was, you know, it was like, as everyone has sort of mentioned so far, it was a bit of a slog. But do you think that carried everyone into good stead in the years ahead? Did it kind of embrace it and you know, strengthen everyone's resolve to make this work?
Absolutely. For me, on the Central Coast, I'm a coastie through and through. Come back home, the Mariners are back on board.
Yep.
And it did set us in good stead. Central Coast football 50 years ago was one of the best memories for me, with establishing my journey as a player and wanting to, even from 1977, I knew there was a Matildas team, there was a national team, and the Central Coast was a great grounding for me, and the opportunity to move forward. I had so much support. They really helped set me up. The families and the people involved in running the Central Coast Women's Soccer Association were outstanding, and I owe so much gratitude for them. It was a strong area for women's football in state titles. There was a lot of support. Coaches were often dads or uncles, but they did their best. They go off and do whatever courses they could to try and make things better. We had so many wonderful people working behind the scenes as volunteers. Central Coast is called family now, in our Mariners family. Nothing's changed. We were a family back then. We were a community. We supported each other. And I was so fortunate to have the backing of such an outstanding organisation that is the Central Coast football, and to see it carried through and what our women have now, it's kind of, there's a big gap, but I think where I started, I can just see it's kind of just like we've gone quiet for 40 years odd, and now we just kicked in, and the enthusiasm, the support, the people behind it is very similar, different but similar. So Central Coast football really set me up to become a Matilda, and as I said, I'm very, very grateful for that, and to be a part of the fan base and to be included and involved, and the girls coming along as well. It's just, it was like it was all those years ago. It's quite surreal, to be honest. It's a crazy word to use, but yeah, once I come back in, I felt like I've come back home, but it does feel like home at the Central Coast Mariners, and it's outstanding. So yeah,
best club on the planet. Everyone knows that. Maybe Tottenham Hotspur might rival it. That's a totally different podcast entirely. And in those early days too, because when I came in, I coached a bit at the women's. That was at Fagans Park at Point Clare. Was that the earliest that we sort of all had the same ground for all of the girls there? Because I know a lot of the Central people on the Central Coast know Fagans Park. Yeah.
Fagans Park was our home base, and we had the two fields going all day, every weekend, and it was a fantastic base, to be honest. Yeah. We were all kind of grouped there together. We could catch up. Our rep coach had the fortunate situation that he could look at his players all on the one day. He didn't have to try and get around all the parks.
Get up on the hill.
Wonderful friendships were established. Wonderful friendships established, and the volunteers, the history of our volunteers on the Central Coast is outstanding. Again, I can't say that enough, because some of the families are still involved, and they're Mariners fans, they're members, and it goes back 50 years. But yeah, Fagans Park again, it was just like a home base, and it was good. We did our rep training there. There was long weekend tournaments there. It holds a lot of fond memories for me, as it would a lot of the Central Coast female players, for sure.
Absolutely. No, every time I drive past Fagans, I still remember the full days of football there when I was there in the 16s. I think they started there at one stage too, and went all day. Fantastic, man. And Leigh, what about for yourself? Because we've spoken about the hard slog, but it builds character and it builds strength. What do you think what was the biggest thing that came out of those early years that has now got the game where it is in the future? What was it? The galvanization of everyone coming together and say it's about time to make this work?
Well, personally, when I first started, it was because my dad was working in Ku-ring-gai at that time in the football club. It was, there was nowhere for the girls to play, and there was girls at school that wanted to play and whatever. So he's had a word to the guys on the committee, and they've said, yeah, we'll set something up. And the first year, must have been 73, I think, they had what the others are talking about. We had a central location. Yeah. So there was letters sent out to the clubs, expressions of interest, and I can't remember how many clubs there were, but we played at the one field at St Ives, and we just played one game after another. How many teams basically turned up? So I'd get my mum to drop me off first thing in the morning, because there was no rego. So you could play if another team was short. So I'd play 2, 3, 4 games in a day. And that was for Ku-ring-gai to see if it was feasible to run a competition. Yeah. And they just went, right, next year we're having a proper competition. So it was like, yay, fantastic. I'm thinking it's going to be bigger and better. Yeah. Until I got told, no, you got rego, you can only play for one team. You play for West Pym. I go, what? One? No, I prefer it to go back the other way. But that's kind of where it started, and it's similar. We were a little bit different because we were treated, I think, probably better than some of the other areas. So whatever club, like I played for West Pymble, our home ground was Griffith, so we played our home games there. We just played on Sundays instead of Saturdays because there wasn't enough time. So we could utilise the grounds, canteens weren't always open, but they were most of the time if we could. But it would have been mums that worked in the canteens. But there was always nets up. We always got referees. Ku-ring-gai Referees Association always supplied referees, so it was an opportunity for more referees to get more games. So it was a little bit different, but it was still really hard. I mean, I can remember people saying, "Oh yeah, I went and watched, saw the girls play the other day, and it was like they're actually pretty good." And I'm thinking, why would you think they wouldn't be? Like, I could never figure out why they were surprised about it. It's like, what? It just kind of just wasn't. Yeah, it was a bit crazy, but I think most of the girls that played were competitive. And when you tell someone who's competitive, you can't do something, it actually makes them even more like determined to make things happen. And I think that was probably a commonality through everybody. You can't do it. Yes, we can. Yes, we have. Yes, we will. Look what we've done now. So I was thinking about this. I'm on a panel tomorrow at International Women's Day at Allianz Stadium. And I've got an idea about the questions I'm being asked, and they're not too indifferent to what we're talking about now. And just looking at our history, and not necessarily running a comparison with the men, but we have achieved so much in such a short time. Even though people think it's a long time, we have achieved so much in such a short time. It's astounding. And it has been. It's been off the back of players. It's been off the back of coaches. It's been off the back of referees. Been off the back of all the people who've been involved. It's, we're kind of probably, the lucky ones. And I don't use the word luck a lot in football. But it's been an incredible journey. And we're only part way through it. We're not anywhere near finished. So we've still got a lot of work to do. But I think everyone's trials and tribulations have helped to get us where we are, and future's looking bright.
Yeah, it's looking very bright. It's looking very yellow and blue too, which we can't complain about that.